how you come down.
Here we are, alive on the other side, literally on the other side of the planet. This lifetime's a weird one. And it is, we chased the sun. We left North America and chased the sun. Such a weird thing to be flying forever and the sun just wasn't going down. Anyway, well, we also chased a day back, ahead. So it is actually today is New Year's Eve, 2023. And it is still the 30th at home. Meanwhile, we left on the 30th, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, timed it just right. So that, we got in late last night, so we timed it right so we could sleep all night and kind of acclimatize ourselves to the local time. And then Sarah decided we need to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning their time. Anyway, way to go. Too excited. Anyway, I was gonna share, so with all the political turmoil going on the planet today, I've never done this in the past. I've never actually bought a Canada t-shirt before leaving in my travels. But I figured, well, let's see. We've got some serious wars going on around the planet today, and where we go, there's typically is a destination, holiday destination for a lot of Israelis, a lot of Russians, a lot of Ukrainians, a lot of people around the planet, right? And there is a lot of wars going on right now, so I figured, well, maybe I'll put on a t-shirt that at least it'll just, if anything, we'll just get laughed at instead of maybe possibly wanting to be shot at, on average, right? Due to our current bogus leaders. But anyways, I'm not going to cover that topic. So anyway, this is possibly going to be, it's not going to be my last one. You know what I did on the plane? I actually worked on my new top 10 list for the year end. How am I going to title? I'm going to do that later on today maybe, and I'll post it up separately. I think it'll be the 2023 last kick of the nuts video. What am I going to title it? You know your family tree has no branches, and you're in the Bigfoot community if. And I did it. I worked on it, and I got it done. So that'll be good later on. We're going to get some voices heard, so we're basically stuck here for a little bit. And this is real easy. This is titled, Hi Steve, my name is James, and I've been a long-time listener. I lived in the southeastern US for most of my life, and I've had several encounters with things I could not explain. Some terrifying and some just bizarre. But the one that sticks with me the most is from Northwest Alabama. This happened in the winter of 2006. I'd recently moved back to Alabama after living and working in Atlanta, Georgia for a couple of years. The time I spent in the big city was very stressful. So when I moved back, I spent weekends camping and hiking just to enjoy nature and decompress. Rain or shine, cold or hot, I'd be in the woods every chance I got. The area in which the encounter happened at, I was very familiar with, and hiked and camped there many times. On and off for nearly 10 years. On one camping trip in late December, early January, I decided to hike and camp in Bankhead National Forest. I've heard of that place before. I was going it alone, like I always did. That day was unseasonably cold, and I did not expect many, if any, other campers there. Just like I thought, I reached the trailhead, and there was not a soul in sight, no cars, nothing. Perfect. I hiked to a good camp spot, about a mile or so down the trail that was next to a running creek. It was late in the evening and nearly dusk by the time I'd finished setting up my tent and collecting firewood for the night. It was just after I got a small campfire going when I heard two very loud tree knocks coming from the other side of the creek. It sounded like a Louisville slugger being swung against a tree at full force. very distinct sound. My camp was about 60 feet or so from the creek, and the sound was from quite far away across the creek. I didn't think much of it at first. When after maybe an hour had passed, I heard the same knocks again, this time much closer. Keep in mind, this was a time when all the stupid Bigfoot shows were popular, and you had fanatics out in the woods all over the country trying to call up a Sasquatch. So I ignored it, and I figured someone was out there trying to have fun. To each their own, right? Anyway, if someone, I doubt they would even know I was there. Anyway, if it was someone, I doubt they would even know I was there. Again, I was alone and I didn't play music or anything like when I camp. The only way you would know I was there is if someone saw the light from my small campfire. Some more time passed, when then I started hearing very large tree branches snapping, now even closer than the last knocks that I heard. This got my attention, but I thought about it for a while and said to myself, it is possible that a few people together could break a large enough branch to make that sound. But I was beginning to get somewhat annoyed that they might be directing it at me. I always traveled armed with a handgun and was comfortable dealing with confrontation. I thought if it was a group of people out there targeting me, they must not be very smart, not very wise to mess with a stranger while he was alone in the middle of nowhere, right? But continued to mind my business and stayed quiet and hoped that if I didn't respond, they would just go away. After more time had passed, I was still sitting by the fire relaxing when out of nowhere, a feeling of dread came over me. That feeling of being watched and a sense of danger that washes over you, and you begin to feel your pulse increase rapidly. I've had this feeling before from previous outings in the forest, but this felt much more serious and alarming. I decided that if there's a crazy person or people out there, that I was not going to give up my position, so I decided to douse my campfire and quickly retreat to my tent. Those were my intentions anyway. As soon as I stood up, I heard the loudest scream I have ever heard. It was very deep, short, and like a shout or a roar at the same time. It was very close, perhaps just the other side of the creek. The sound removed all doubt that I might be dealing with a human. Whatever creature made that noise had to have been huge. I did not bother putting the fire out. I quickly got in my tent, zipped it up, and sat there, remaining quiet, holding my pistol and straining my ears to listen for any outside noises. This area is mainly huge oak trees, and everywhere on the ground was a thick layer of dried leaves. So I was confident that if whatever this thing was, I would at least be able to hear it coming. The leaves on the ground made it sound like even if a squirrel was hopping around, it would sound like an elephant walking. For the next half hour or so, I would hear deep grunts and what sounded like gibberish coming from the other side of the creek. But the sound was coming from the same spot, not moving, which was a small relief for me. I'm still in my tent, not making a sound, and still clenching the pistol in my now trembling hand. Then I heard what I knew to be a large rock hit the water in the middle of the creek. Not a muskrat splashing around, not a beaver slapping his tail. It was a loud, plunk. There were some more grunts and another rock hit the water. This time it splashed closer to the bank, my side of the creek bank. At this point, things were getting serious. I was just about to yell out for this thing to stop when I hear another rock being thrown. It had not hit the water. It hit the soft, sandy ground and rolled between my fire and my tent. I did not see it, but judging by the sound, it had to be a bowling ball-sized stone. The feet was maybe 50 feet wide. Probably meant the creek was maybe 50 feet wide, and I was another 50 feet from the creek. Tell me what kind of strength it would take to hurl a large rock nearly 100 feet. It was then that I shouted out, "Okay, I understand you don't want me here. Just please leave me alone and I'll leave as soon as the sun comes up." A couple minutes passed, and then I started hearing footsteps from across the creek moving through the leaves away from me. I let out a sigh of relief that only lasted for a moment. Next I heard footsteps from all around my tent, steadily walking away. It dawned on me, and I was horrified to realize that while this thing on the other side of the creek had my utmost attention, his buddies were closing in on me and had me surrounded. I sat there scared to death and listened as to what I guessed to have been 4 or 5 of these things walk away from my tent. They were no longer bothering to be quiet. I sat and listened until I could barely make out the last footstep in the thick leaves. I sat up the rest of the night, and in the blue of the morning, well before sunrise, I gathered my stuff, packed my tent, and briskly walked the mile back to my parked truck. On the long drive home, I thought about what happened and came to the conclusion that if one of these beings wanted to kill me, they could have easily. They might not have meant any harm to me, but they damn sure know how to scare the hell out of a fella. Thanks for letting me share, and I'm sure there are others out there that can tell you more stories about Bankhead National Forest in northwest Alabama. Take care, Steve James. Okay, man. There you go. Another common flavor, right? Another common flavor. The tent. Why they bother, I haven't a clue. Is it just the vibration of that particular zone? Gotta move my camera here. So anyway, why the effort? Why even bother, right? There's a human being in a tent. What's the big attraction? You've got to be bigger frickin' fish to catch than doing that with your time, right? But anyway, another one. Let's see how many other people pour in from the Bankhead National Park, National Forest. Thanks for sending that in, man. Now, hello, Steve. Here's another one. It's titled Reaction to Roar. Hello, Steve. First, I'd like to say thank you for what you do and how you do it. Second, I want you to know that I think that sharing my name is meaningless. So do as you please. Never think that, ever. Everybody counts equally across the board. I was listening to an episode that you put out 8 days ago. Today's date is 29th December 2023. The episode is new. Listen to this roar. Recording sent in along with. Please excuse my ignorance. Part of this is embarrassing. About 27 years ago, my wife and I heard a similar roar several times. I was not raised around moose, and I did not know much about them. I'd heard elk and other animals being very loud. I assumed the roar was a moose. Therefore, the sound did not alarm us much. Something about it bothered us, but we rationalized any good sense away. My decision to write this was not based on our experiences. I just threw that in to point out that ignorance can be bliss. What I want to share is my dog's reaction. I've had many dogs in my life. I've had German Shepherds in the past, and currently we have 2 very large German Shepherds. Other dogs that I've owned have had different reactions to television, both to the visual and the audio. These dogs have not ever shown any type of acknowledgement of television. Today they were lying on the floor near me sleeping as I listened to this episode. When the roar played, they both woke up and became quite alarmed. They stared at the television and out the window to the backyard. We have had unseen visitors there. After a couple of minutes, they laid back down, but they kept their heads up. Their ears were straight up, and for a few minutes they continued to look towards the backyard. They were obviously quite alarmed, and they did not relax for quite a while. I think that I will have to play more of such audio for them and watch their reaction. I think a lot of people are going to do that. A lot of people might do that already, right? I was hoping to hear whether or not other dogs have obvious reactions from such audio. That meaning audio online, right? Obviously we know the reactions, what goes on in real life in the backyard and pets. I've been listening to YouTube for more than 3 years. I want you to know that it has been exciting and encouraging to witness your personal growth. I appreciate your ability to stay neutral, grounded, and open. These are major factors in a person's ability to learn, and boy have you learned. Your ability to learn is an example that I am certain has benefited many. I am certain that these and other traits accentuate your listeners' ability to glean pertinent information from your shares. I wish for you a very happy new year. Please tell Sarah and family that we send our love for the whole family and wish for them a happy new year also. I'm certain they are a wonderful and positive part of your team. Again, thank you for all the valuable and humbling information that you have shared. The value cannot be expressed. Best regards, Jeffrey Snyder. Jeffrey, thanks for sending that in, man. You count just as much as anyone else, and we appreciate the kind words. And it's It's shares from you and everybody else that make this place the big valuable bucket of knowledge it is, right? And I'll agree, I've learned a lot. I've definitely learned so frickin' much. I've learned a lot. And I'm writing that currently in a second, detailed, very knowledge-filled book. I've got 2 books I've been writing. One's strictly for hunting, and the other one's for this. And I did a lot on the flight over. I didn't sleep a wink. Like we flew like 16 or 17 hours first go, and then 3 more after that. So I got acclimatized to the time over here. As we embark on our journey, go to a familiar area, join the same gym, and start beating the crap out of myself and working on me, which is what I like to do next after getting the busy fall done and all the other activities getting done. I always preach to everybody, you got to get out of your bubble. Got to get out of your bubble. Get out of your bubble, and everything that you possibly need to work on becomes quite clear. So that's one of my major motives to do what we do. Babbling, not much sleep. I don't know what time it is at home right now, but it's early in the morning here. I don't know what time I'm on right now. I'll figure it out in a bit. I probably don't want to know. Now, just one more. Grandma's Little Person Story. More on the little people. Here we go. Hey, Steve. Hope you're doing great. Absolutely love what you throw down in your videos while reading emails. So glad you're being a sounding board for so many and sharing how bad people like to silence or try to discredit the truth. Somebody's got to do it. We're winning as a group. It's funny how others are still saying you're paying people to make up these stories. Can some be fabricated? Possibly. But if these are fabricated, wow. You and your emailing posse need help by the people in white suits. Put in a padded room with a jacket that makes you hug yourself. LOL. Insert eye roll. Yeah, no shit, right? That's pretty funny. Anyway, let's get to the meat and taters of this email. I love meat and taters. My grandmother, rest her soul, told me a story about an alien sighting. I was talking to her about her thoughts on cryptids, and she told me something I scoffed at. But even so, she shared the following. She went on to say that she had a good friend who had an alien or UFO encounter. She said this person was very credible. His story, of what I can recall. He was looking out his window and seen an oval-shaped craft hovering just outside of it. He said it had lights on the outside and inside. As he looked inside the craft, he could see 2 small human-like beings sitting behind controls in a lit cockpit of this craft. It hovered there for a bit and then shot off. I don't know what to say. She then went on to talk about human-animal hybrids, which again I couldn't wrap my noodle around it, and said no way that can't happen. But she insisted. She heard stories when she was younger of these beings and had enough people shared too many similar stories to be fictional. I was so naive then. I wish I would have heard all these stories with what I know now and questioned her further. I wish I wasn't dumbed down by the system, told about these things being truth from the start. My take away from this is that we need to teach our young to think outside of the box, to seek the truth and question everything. Never be held back by the mainstream truth, like fake news and teachings. Evolution, after all, is just a theory. To look into the truth of present day things and from factual history, not just what is in one book like they provide us as schools, but to really seek the truth daily, to seek the truth about everything. So that's it. Nothing like being blinded by the system and allowing dummies to graduate without the real truth. It is quite frustrating, right? Especially when you start to see that clearly. Regardless, people will ignore your and so many others' truths. I firmly believe most people were born from their father's left testicle because they just don't act right. That's a new one. Have a great day and blessed new year. God bless, Melissa. P.S. This took place in Wisconsin. Okay, Melissa, appreciate the kind words. I'm glad you're seeking out truth. Super glad. and you know the routine. Whatever you come across in the future that may help the people, get it to us. All right? Get it to us. Who's next? I got time for one more, I think. Gotta find some food. Now, who do we got? What do we got? What's this one? Holy. This is huge. It's probably what husband read. All right. I'm going to save that for later. But of course, I will obviously read it. Okay, I've got one. I don't think this has been read. And quick note, though. I remember my friend Jeff, the truck driver, ice road truck driver, Cowboy Jeff, wildlife photographer. He just texted me. He's driving up north. He's going to be driving over the Arctic Ocean soon. He's on his way up there right now. And he texted me as we were talking about various things, but he also mentioned in closing that currently right now, he said there's a grumpy Sasquatch near Mount Currie right now throwing things at people, and the public's been cautioned to stay away from the area. And where that is going down currently is about, actually it's where we had a young guy from Mount Currie, Harley, emailed us over a year ago. I think it was him and his cousin or him and his uncle were floating on the Bankhead River trout fishing, and this being stepped out in front of him in the river and stepped back in the timber. Kelly down the mountain, our friend, shared lots of experiences from there. We made that video in his backyard. It's right there. It's ongoing. That is also possibly about 300 yards away from the large man-like being who had basically had salmon in his hands and walked right across the road blatantly in front of everyone by the store there. Freaked everybody out. That happened a few years ago. It's endless around there. Obviously, there's a handful that frequent there, possibly year-round or whatever. But anyway, what I'm getting at is anybody's familiar with what's going on and you want to share more, or some of the people who've had the things thrown at them and smelling the smell, if you want to share what's going down, email me. It's going to be nothing surprising to me anyway. That's for sure. And I used to live about 500 yards. It was my previous home from where that's going down currently. Always has been going down. Now, moving along. Listen to this one. No title on this email. It starts off with background on me. I spent 22 years carrying machine guns for the United States government. I've held 5 security clearances for 4 different agencies. Of those are the USAF. Second one's the Federal Air Marshal Service, Department of State, and CIA. Wow. I was drug tested and psych evaluated regularly over 2 decades. In the course of training and live operations, as well as outdoor recreational activities, I spent a lot of time in the woods, often in the dark and literally all over the planet. But you got some stories. So here's the relevant story. 1992, I was a young airman in the USAF and was stationed in Fairchild, AFB in Spokane, Washington. A friend and I went up into a relatively, for the lower 48, remote spot in northeast Washington state, just northeast of Usk, USK, Washington, near North Baldy Mountain. We were bow hunting elk. We never saw an elk the entire week we were there. Ooh, that sucks. Been there though. However, I did step over a warm pile of grizzly scat one afternoon, and boy did we get the hell out of that area fast. One evening, after spending the day covering hundreds of miles on my motorcycle, going from high ground to high ground glassing for elk, we started a nice fire and made dinner. My friend Tim was from rural northwest Missouri and had grown up in the woods. To say he was an avid fisherman and hunter would be a huge understatement. He lived to hunt and fish and saw work as a necessary evil. Yeah, same. As the evening wound down, I was sure ready for my sleeping bag. We covered a lot of miles that day. We were sleeping in the back of a Chevy Blazer on this trip. I went and crawled into the Blazer, and Tim went to take his evening shit. I was in the Blazer arranging my bag and sleeping pad when there is an urgent but fairly soft pounding on the door. Apparently, I had accidentally locked the door when I climbed in the truck. The camp was still up pretty well the camp was still lit up pretty well as the fire was dying down, but it has certainly been a white man fire. Let me explain that one. So, It's a funny one. You probably heard it. Many haven't. It's the difference between a white man fire and a native man's fire. The white man stays warm getting firewood for his big fire, while the native man stays warm sitting around his small fire. So there you go. In case you hadn't heard. I could immediately see the terror on Tim's face and quickly unlocked the door. He leapt into the truck. He was scared shitless. Knowing there was a significant grizz population in the area, I figured maybe one had come up to the camp. He jumped in the truck and excitedly told me the story. Right after he got his handgun out of the holster, seems he went over to the edge of the camp and squatted down behind a log to take care of business. It was pitch black night, so he didn't want to wander too far. He said he was in the shadow of the log from the firelight and noted that he was downwind from whatever it was that came up to camp. The first thing that alerted him to the presence of something out there in the darkness was a loud boom. He said, like something very large jumped down off a log, and then 4 or 5 heavy boom footsteps. He said it was very creepy because whatever it was ran right up to the edge of the firelight, just where he couldn't see it. Stood there for less than a minute, and then he heard heavy booming footsteps as it ran off. He said, quote, I spent my entire life in the woods, and I swear on my life, whatever that was not on 4 legs. It was on 2, end quote. He was very rattled by the experience. I didn't hear or see anything, so I went outside, shined the flashlight around a bit, then pretty randomly emptied my 22 rifle mag into the woods, emptied my 22 rifle mag into the woods in that general direction. I said, well, whatever it was probably won't come back. I think our hunt was over the next day. I didn't have any other problems that night and in all the years since. I haven't seen anything that hasn't been explained. We did look for sign in the daylight and found nothing. However, the forest floor in that area is covered with very thick duff, and tracks can be non-existent most of the time. Use this email however you like. You can use my name and anything else freely. I own a towing company in Montana, and I don't work for the government anymore. Oh, good for you, you escaped. There you go. Another lifelong avid outdoors guy, right? How many people you hear from, well, I've been here all my life, I hunted all my life, I never see nothing. That doesn't mean shit. Obviously, right? I mentioned this before. Became aware of and made friends with a couple guys who were members of a close-knit, what you could almost call as an elite hunting group. These guys were very diligent, very skilled, patient hunters, but very successful and very good at finding very rare, massive mule deer and elk in British Columbia. And they were on the hunting forum I was on when somebody brought this topic up, and I became the biggest mouth on there because so many assholes were starting to belittle people for having the courage to come out and say, oh, this is what I saw, this is what I saw, that's what I heard. And everybody started, a lot of guys started to belittle them, so I piped up and started shitting right back on everybody and it didn't stop. Anyway, so one of these guys emailed me, private messaged me and said, that really happened to you? Do you believe in that shit? I'm like, hey man, can't change my story, I didn't ask for it. And I'll never forget that he had asked me back then, because he said that him and his group had respect for me on my hunting skills and what I brought to the table as well. So he was actually, they all scoffed at the topic, and he was messaging me on the side saying, hey man, come on, really? Anyway, a couple years after that, he messaged me and said that one of their group is absolutely messed up because he had a face-to-face and he's not going to go in the woods anymore. He dumped his hunting, and they all lived for it just like I do. They were avid, super avid, and whatever happened to this guy with his face-to-face, it stole everything from him instantly. He doesn't go in the woods anymore. And I even said to him, I go, hey man, give my email or number or whatever. If you want somebody to talk to, I'll talk to us. Nope, he doesn't want to. He doesn't want to talk to you. He doesn't want to talk to us. He doesn't want to talk to anybody. He's absolutely messed up. And there you go. So why I'm sharing that story is an example of how you can be the top of your game and experience and have 20, 30, 40 years in the woods. And this topic doesn't even come to mind ever. You kind of laugh at it, shake your head, don't give it any energy, and then all of a sudden, boom, in your face, there it is. There you go. But anyway, There you go. I got some more shared. So off we go. I don't know what we're doing today. A handful of things. Then we got to do a little more minor traveling today, and then hopefully wherever we end up, I am going to deliver 2023's year-end last kick of the nuts. Top 10. The top 10s. I haven't named it yet, but it's going to be funny. I rattled off to Sarah this morning. She was laughing her head off, so it's probably going to... I think I nailed it. Back shortly.